Hello, this is Gary again, and I have another video for you today. Today I'll be doing a review of the Caran Museum Aquarelle Colored Watercolor Pencils, and I am so excited about this. I got these from a fan. Thank you very much, and I so appreciate you trusting me with this review. So anyway, they used my Amazon wish list, and there will be a link to my Amazon wish list down below. So thank you so much for doing that. Before we start, I do want to take a quick minute to apologize. I have been feeling a little bit sick, so there haven't been as many videos as there were before. I got a tooth pulled, and then after that I was not feeling really well, so I have been taking it pretty lightly, so I haven't been able to do as many videos as I would have liked. So so I do apologize for that. I'm taking it easy. If you guys remember, I think it was this year or the year before, I got really sick, and I don't want to go through that again, so just taking it easy. So so there's that. So there may not be as many videos over the next few weeks as there would normally be. Just trying to take it easy until I feel 100%. Anyway, so there's that. So I do want to apologize. The other thing is there will be purchase links for this down in the description below if you guys want to buy this. And I think if you guys can afford it, you should, because these are so amazing. But you also really support the channel by using those links down in the description. So make sure that you bookmark my Amazon purchase link down in the description below. Anyway, so let's get started. So these is Museum Aquarelle by Caran. They are made in Switzerland, like all the Caran products, which I think is pretty amazing that they make all of these in Switzerland. These are extremely high quality watercolor pencils. Let me show you the watercolor. Look how vibrant they are. This is the sketch that you guys saw before, and this is a new sketch, and then I have some room left over to do some additional sketches here in this area. But this is how vibrant those colors are. These are just really amazing, wonderfully vibrant colors. They are much more like traditional watercolors than pretty much any of the other watercolor pencils that I have tried. You can see here my little attempt at a Swiss Army knife. Let me see if I can go a little bit closer. You can see my attempted Swiss Army knife over here. They are much closer to traditional watercolor in the sense that they do re-wet and reactivate, but some colors are more staining, and some colors are less staining. So there's that. So because these are so much more like traditional watercolor paints, in some ways these are a little bit more challenging than, say, the ink tints, because with the ink tints, once you lay a layer down, like I said, they can be lifted, but it's a lot more work, where these, they lift much more easily, much more like traditional watercolor paints. So you do have to have a little bit more, not necessarily more experience, but just a little bit more, just be a little bit more careful with these. Anyway, so we'll go through all of that, but let me give you, I did want to show you some swatches before we got started. A swatch card of the 12 colors that come in the set. I will swatch them out for you, but I wanted you guys to see this while I talk about these pencils. They come in 72 colors. They are sold in very strange configurations. There's the set of 12. There's this set of 12, which at the time I added it to my Amazon wish list was like 35-ish. 12, which is this set. They come in themed sets. The themed sets are landscape and marine set. The Amazon had the landscape set for $58. That's 20 pencils. And they also had the marine set for $37. I'm sorry, for $47, not $37. And then after that, they are sold in a wood box that has 80 pencils, even though there are only 72 colors in the set, because there's some repeats, as well as like some graphite pencils in that wood box of 80. Anyway, so there may be other sets in other regions. I just don't know for sure. There is a separate palette that is really amazing. Let me, when we do the swatching, I will get out the separate palette and I'll show you palette as well as the Museum Aquarelle brush. Let's see here. These are extremely light fast, more light fast than pretty much any of the other water soluble pencils. In fact, they have some of the highest light fast ratings. Let's see. And because of, let me show you here, because of the fact that these work much more like traditional watercolors. You do have the dual primary here, and let me show you here. You can see it here, where you do have the dual triad that you can do with the primaries. You can have your cool and warm yellows, your cool and warm red, and your cool and warm blue. So if you have just a little bit of color theory, you can pretty much use this set to make just about any color that you like. So this is an extremely versatile set, and I'm going to show you, actually let me show you now what I've made. This is my completed page. Hold on. So this is my completed page. You can see that it's a pretty versatile set as is. And you can see that even though they are more like traditional watercolors, you can still layer. You just have to be a little bit more careful in higher levels. One of the things I've read somewhere, and I've been doing it, and it's been really helpful, is when you do the first layers is to use more water, and then as you go higher up in the layers is to use progressively less water and more pigment, for water. And that's been working really well for me. Anyway, so that's one tip that I use. And, these work that same way. So these work closer to traditional watercolor paints than pretty much any of the other watercolor pencils that I have tried. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pause right here. I'm going to show you guys the palette, just really quickly, the palette and the Museum Aquarelle brush that I have. And then after that, we're going to do the color swatching, and then we're going to end with the comparison and my final thoughts. All right, so I'll be right back. All right, I am back. I have talked about this in the past, but I really, really wanted to show it in this video, just because it's such a fascinating thing. So what you can do is this has two sides. And when I got mine, it was like $10. Again, there'll be an Amazon purchase link down below. And if you use those link, it helps the channel. And also a main Amazon link that you can bookmark, and you can use it for all your future purposes. Anyway, so for all your future purchases, and again, it doesn't cost you anything extra. So anyway, so what this is it is a palette for water soluble media. So so the way that it works is you can use this side for like water soluble markers, that sort of thing. This is a very smooth side. You can see the reflection of my light and my dreadlocks, which I need to twist my hair. Anyway, and then on this side, it has a little bit more, you can see it, there's a little bit more matte texture, and you can use this side for your pencils. And I'm just going to very quickly illustrate. I am going to use my Albrecht watercolor pencils to illustrate, only because they are not as expensive as the Museum Aquarelle. So it's a little bit, so I feel a little bit freer to use this just for demonstration purposes. All right, so, and then you can use that not only to pick up the color and lay down on a paper, but you can also use that to create very traditional watercolor-like custom blends. If you can see this, you can see now that there's this really neat, unique color that I have made. And I did not bring with me a sheet of watercolor paper, but that's not a deal breaker, because we can just use a little bit right here, and I can show you that I can use this palette with the color that I mixed up. And so now I have my own little mix, and you can do that with both the soft side and this like harder side. This more textured side. That works better for pencils, but this isn't watercolor paper. This is more just to show you how it works, and the process by which this works. So anyway, so I wanted to show you that. The next thing that I wanted to show you is the Museum Aquarelle watercolor brush, and this sort of works the same way as the other ones, except that there's something really fascinating. You can fill it with the there's a sort of like a vacuum fill mechanism, but you can also add insane way more water by just sticking something in here and filling it that way. So if you want to fill it that way and add way more water, you can also do that. I can do a video on this. I only have the one. Amazon sent me the wrong one, and I didn't renew it I didn't return it in time to get a replacement. But anyway, I got this felt tip thing, which I don't like because, as you can see, they all stain, but I feel like this one drops the color off more. So I would recommend avoiding the felt tip and getting, if you want to get this, to get the brush tips instead. But it's, you know, it's on my Amazon wish list, and at some point I'll get the trio set and, you know, try them out all together. All right, so those are those two things, two random extras, and I will be right back with the swatching. All right, here we are with the swatching. I'm gonna hold this a little bit closer than I normally would, just because I want you to see the flow of this, how it activates so very, very quickly, and how it flows so wonderfully. Look at how fast that activates, and look at how much pigment that pulls up. Look at how much pigment that is pulling up. It's really, really phenomenal. I absolutely love this. I just love how much pigment it pulls up, but also how quickly it does it. All right. The next one is, that was the lemon yellow. This one is the gold cadmium. The other thing I found is that the colors do lay down exactly the same, but I feel like some take a little bit more work to activate than others. And I feel like I had that same issue with the super color. I'm not that fussed about it, because that is how, you know, if you use a lot of high quality pigments, you know, that is how it is with watercolor. Sometimes some pigments take longer to activate than others. Now very few companies, or I don't know of any company, that gives you pigment information for their water soluble medium, but they do have a video on YouTube where they claim to use single pigments. I cannot in any way confirm that, but it would not surprise me, because these are so vibrant and they do blend so well, in such a way that you would basically expect that of, you know, a high quality artist watercolor paints. So in that sense, they do function in that way. And I don't know for sure if they are single pigment, but they definitely, it wouldn't surprise me if that's true. Let me put it to you that way. I don't want to tell you off the top of my head, yes, it's true that they are single pigment, but if it were true, I would not be surprised. Look at how much pigment that is. If I wanted to pull that, I could just keep pulling and keep pulling. The other thing about pigments is that some, you know, when you use artist grade, you know, pigments, some pigments are stronger than others, some pull further than others. But I feel like, for the most part, except for the fact that some take a little bit more work to activate, I feel like for the most part they do a good job of trying to match the performance of each of all the pencils so that they perform about the same. Sorry about that. Okay, here's. See, they call this permanent blue. Oh, I haven't been reading to you the color names. I'm sorry. The first one was gold cadmium. The second one was light cadmium red. The third one was purplish red. The fifth one was dark ultramarine, and this one is called permanent blue. But if I was using these, like if this was a watercolor paint, I would have, you know, labeled this more of a phthalo blue. But these are just super pigmented watercolor pencils. I mean, it's genuinely impressive. And you know, guys know how much I love the Albrecht Dürer, but I was really, really impressed by these. I also, I showed you guys the palette earlier, but I didn't show you guys how I used it in the drawing that you guys saw. So I might go back and show you guys the drawing that the coloring page that I did again, and just briefly show you guys some of the places. Look how much pigment there's left, and then this brush has so much. So look at that. And that's phthalo green. And this one is called bright green. And this one is called Yellow Ochre, and it very much looks like a ochre. You can see all the pigment, and because of the fact that this has so much pigment, these work exceedingly well for that method that I talked to you guys both in the video on the 7 ways to use watercolor pencils, and there'll be a link to that up there, as well as with using the palette. These work exceedingly well for that because the pigments are so pigmented. This is a brown. This is labeled a brown, but it very much looks like a burnt sienna. Let's label the brown. This looks like a burnt sienna. But because of that, you could use, if you didn't want to get the whole set and you still wanted to try them out, what I would recommend is recommend that you get these 6 colors open stock plus the brown, and that will pretty much, you know, you could use that to create quite a lot with that. Let's see. This next one is the Payne's Gray, which I found the Payne's Gray actually quite useful, especially for shadows. I mix this with either the dark ultramarine for slightly warmer shadows and the perm blue for slightly cooler shadows, and that did really well. I'm going to show you guys that in the picture in a second. And this last one is the black. Now the black, I didn't mention this before, but the black, I was not happy with the black. I found that I don't know, I just wasn't that pleased with the black. I found that out of all the colors, was the hardest for me to get a thickness that I found satisfying. It also felt a little bit washed out. Even when I laid down a lot of color, it still felt a little bit washed out. So I don't know. The black was really the only one I wasn't that happy with. But otherwise, I was really impressed by these. They do share that with the other watercolor pencils that they dry really, really quickly. So that's really good. And that's definitely one of the reasons why I love watercolor pencils. And one of the reasons why I think some people prefer them over watercolor paints, because they dry so much quicker. But anyway, let me show you right here. Real quick, in this drawing, you can see that I used the Payne's Gray and the blues for these shadows here. You can see, and I did it again here. You can also see some of the layering that I did here, but for the green of the apple, for the inside of the green apple, what I did to get that for the entire green apple and for parts of the red, for the red apple, is I mixed the colors on the palette, and I mixed up the colors that I wanted. Oh, these are some of the leftover colors that I was using for some of the shadows over there that you guys saw, but that I mixed up the green for the apple. This might be it right here. So I mixed up the green for the apple, and then I painted it on there like it was a watercolor paint, and that worked really well for that. So anyway, all right, so I'm going to take a break, and then we are going to do the comparison with the other watercolor watercolor pencils, and then the final conclusions. All right, here's for the comparison. I'm going to compare it to pretty much all the other water-soluble media that I have. This is the Museum Aquarelle. And you can see here what I did is I got the water down, and then I had so much pigment left that I was like, you know what, it's a waste to just throw it out. So I ended up just running whatever was left along here and just using up a little bit of what was left. So I liquefied this, and then I had some leftover pigment. So this is all the leftover pigment So you can see just how strong the colors are on here. And they do reactivate. So sometimes, like here, I felt like I got a little bit of the green into this yellow because it was activating some of this. So anyway, so there's that. So, like I said, I'm going to compare this to pretty much all the other ones that I have tested. And this is the Museum Aquarelle, and this is the Crayola in the bottom. And you can see definitely very quickly, you can see the difference not only in the blended colors. So you can see that, look at that, those two greens, the purples, especially the green and the purple, those two blended colors. The Museum Aquarelle is obviously much smoother. Overall, you're going to get higher vibrancy with the Museum Aquarelle. The Cretacolor Merino, I was not that impressed with these, especially for the price. You can see why. There's just no vibrancy here. There's no oomph. There's no excitement here. These are dull colors. They wouldn't be that fun to work with. This is the Corner Mandalas. I was impressed with these, and you can see why. They don't quite have the vibrancy of the Museum Aquarelle, but they still do really well. You can see here, definitely the black, I think, is probably the closest one that does a good match, but you can see that, you know, it's not quite Museum Aquarelle, but it's still really nice. So the Coronor Mandalas, and there'll be a link up there to the Coronor Mandalas, as well as at some point there'll be a link to all my other watercolor pencil reviews. This is the Derwent watercolor pencils, which I found to be lackluster right along the lines of the Cretacolor Merino, though I found these to be a little bit better than the Cretacolor Merino. They're still not, you know, they're still not the kind of vibrancy. You can see it in the mix right here. Hold on, let me not distract you with the previous one. You can see the mix right here, the green mix. You can see the orange mix, but especially look at the purple mix. You see the difference in the purple mix, the top one being the Museum Aquarelle, especially the vibrancy of the individual colors. But the mix is really, they show kind of a little bit of muddy colors, not that well founded. Now, the Derwent ink test does a great job with the vibrancy, and that's one of the things that I think makes the Derwent ink test so popular. They do not have the light fastness of the Museum Aquarelle, but what they do have is you do get a lot of vibrancy for the dollar. And for the fact that, you know, you are getting an ink-based product, possibly dye-based, I don't know for sure, but they're not light fast. And also, I don't know, I didn't find the blues to be that good with this, but you can see here, you can see that because this is a cooler blue, I'm sorry, because this is a more green blue instead of a more red blue, it didn't really give me the perfect purple. But anyway, but the point is that the vibrancy is actually not that far off for the ink tints, but the light fastness would not be there. So, but that is a good alternative. The Caran Supercolor. Now look at the Caran Supercolor. You can see now the difference between the Supercolor and the Museum Aquarelle. Especially look at that yellow and look at that green mix. It's really apparent with the yellow, the green, and some of the other colors. You can definitely see the increased vibrancy on the Museum Aquarelle. But they do a really good job in terms of having a really nice. So the super colors are, again, not as light fast as the Museum Aquarelle, but still a really very good option. And last but not least, my favorite Albrecht watercolor pencils, because you do get the layering ability of the ink tints, but with a little bit more vibrancy and more light fast. You can see the Albrecht does a really good job. They are definitely close. I think the biggest difference with the Albrecht versus the Museum Aquarelle. Not only is the price on the Museum Aquarelle, but it's also the fact that the Museum Aquarelle is definitely more vibrant. It's not so much more that that you can't enjoy the Albrecht, but if you have them side to side, you really see it. If you don't have them side to side, I don't think they would be as noticeable, but having them side to side, you really, really see it. Especially apparent. Now this is a light ultramarine versus a dark ultramarine, but that's the one where you can see it, the purplish red and the magenta. You also really see it there. The bright green versus the light green, you see it over there in terms of the Museum Aquarelle having more vibrancy. But overall, I think that there's no doubt in my mind that out of all the water soluble mediums that I have and that I have reviewed, the Museum Aquarelle are definitely the best, but they're also the most expensive. I would say they're the best in terms of the light fastness, the color vibrancy, but as well as the blending, the way that they blend together, and they give you these really smooth, non-muddy colors. Look at this purple, how smooth that purple is. This green is also a good green. It's more of a yellow green than I wanted, but that's more me. Look at how nice that orange is. So the colors work really well. They blend really, really nice together. Overall, I was extremely impressed by these. If you can afford these, if you are a professional artist, you can afford these. If you're selling your work, this is definitely something that you will be really happy with. If you are a crafter, if you just do adult coloring books, I do not think that you need the Museum Aquarelle. I love them. I found them to be extremely vibrant, but I do not think that you need them. I found the Albrecht to be extremely a close match to it, in terms of how they work. I mean, the Museum Aquarelle is definitely better, but it's not so much better that you can't be happy with the Albrecht. Absolutely not. Do I regret getting my Albrechters now that I have the is my spelling bad, or is that? Oh, no. You can see the C. There's an I there. Okay. Anyway, that's off topic. But anyway, am I disappointed that I got the Albrecht? No. I'm still not disappointed that I got the Albrecht. I'm still very happy with the Albrecht. I see now why they charge so much for the Museum Aquarelle. If you really, really need that light fastness rating, then there's absolutely nothing, overcharging about the Museum Aquarelle price. If you don't need the light fast rating, then I still recommend the Albrecht. If you don't need that light fast rating, but if you because the Albrecht are still light fast, they're just not going to be as light fast as the Museum Aquarelle. But if you don't need that light fast rating, and you don't have the money, then I think you can get the Albrechters and be extremely, extremely happy. Would I trade in my Albrecht for Museum Aquarelle? Probably not. Mainly because I just really like the Albrecht. However, if I had all the money in the world, would I have a set of the Museum Aquarelle in a wood box? Heck yeah, I would. I totally would. I would, and I would be very happy with them, and I would use them lots. So I think that's it. So ultimately my conclusion is, I really did enjoy these Museum Aquarelles. I really did like them. I really was impressed by them. My go-to recommendation is still going to be the Albrechters, but if you have the money and you want the Museum Aquarelle, get the Museum Aquarelle. You're not going to be disappointed. All right. And the fact that it's 72 colors is not going to be an issue because they blend so well. So there's that. And I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And obviously don't forget the Amazon links below. They really do help the channel a lot, especially bookmarking my main Amazon web page and then using that for all your Amazon purchases this holiday season and in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.
Rainy, gross day in Northern Virginia today, and as Steve just said, Ralph Northam blew the doors off in these counties. They had huge turnout and huge margins, and the Northam campaigns optimistic poll coming into today had them winning by 5. So this margin surprised even them. So I think